All right, we're going to ignore the fact that it says file get. I don't know what that means. Anyway, here's some code. I'm going to step through it. It's not that long. This is actually the code that I wrote for my D&D fight up here. You can clearly see it says D&D fight. Actually, I don't know what you can see on the screen. It might be very tiny. The good news is that the code is available in the Canvas course. If you found the link to this video, you found the link to this video with a link. Sorry, I broke for a second. With a link to this code, so you should be able to follow along. And I want to kind of point out that the requirements for this particular assignment were to ask the player their name, which I've got here. It was to create a random hit points for your player, a random strength for your player, to get a cool enemy name, to give your enemy random HP and strength. And the strength was specifically between the numbers of 5 and 31, only primes. And then, of course, we need to get some input. And those input choices were to fight, heal, and run. And I do believe those were the requirements. And so let's go ahead and start, not at the top, because when I was coding this, just kind of naively jumping in, the first thing I actually did was add these comments to remind myself so I wouldn't have to Alt-Tab, switch back and forth between what I was doing and where my notes were. So I added my notes first, and I was able to make player name very easily. We learned the keyword input, and inside of the input keyword, we make a small prompt. And my prompt here is, what is your name? And that will be stored into the player name variable. Now, full disclosure, I'm never using the player name variable ever again. It's weird. I'm just not using it. You might be, though, And then we also ask for hit points. So I've got player HP as the name of my variable, a random integer. And now I need rand int. I can get rand int from random import rand int. Now I am using Visual Studio Code because it's got the cool colors. And from random import rand int seems to work for that. So that is why I have this line here on line 2. If I need it, for line 7. And then of course I'm using the same thing or similar thing on line 9, but with a player str for player strength and between the numbers that I specified in the assignment requirement. Then I wanted a cool enemy name, and just because I am going to make a variable called enemy name, and I know that I'm going to be using that a lot. In fact, when I highlight it here in this particular editor, it highlights it down here as well. Bam and bam and bam and bam and bam, all over the place. So I gave myself 2 enemies to fight. First is, of course, Trogdor the Burninator, who was maybe a man at some time, but now is definitely a dragon. And Charlie the Non-Believer, obviously, who is a unicorn, who goes on a quest that he did not really want to be a part of. And we give that enemy random HP and a random strength. And this is the fun part too, because in the requirements, I required random choice for the strength to be effectively 5 and 31, between 5 and 31 of just the prime numbers. And in class, we decided that the easiest way to do this would be to use the random.choice feature. And of course, we are using a list in here. And so this random.choice is choosing one of these things from that list. And because I knew this, I can also do it up here, right? So, yeah. And then we get to thing right here. I don't need to talk about that because I don't need to talk about it yet. I first wanted to make the game. And I want it to be a game, so I want to do something over and over and over again. And that means I'm going to be in a loop. And so this next section here is a while loop. And the while loop, all of that highlighted text, is effectively the game loop. And I decided that the game should continue as long as the player HP is greater than 0, which is good because the player starts with an HP that is greater than 0. So that means we will definitely go into this. And then, I've got some trickiness here. So else, when we first start, the choice will be given. And it will say basically that the great and powerful enemy name stands before you. Enemy name, of course, is coming from enemy name, which is either Trogdor the Burninator or Charlie the Non-Believer. I can't tell which until we run it. Stands before you. Will you fight, heal, or run? And I have formatted fight, heal, and run in such a way that it makes sense that I'm asking for input. And then if choice dot upper, so I'm saving that value that we're getting for input into choice, and I'm checking to see if the upper value, so whether they put a lowercase or uppercase f, or they put a lowercase or uppercase fight, they will do the fight. And in the fight, the enemy's HP will be lowered by the player's strength. The last choice is now going to be fight. I actually don't need this here. I don't need it here, but I wanted it here. And the reason I wanted it here is because I wanted to say something, and I also didn't want I wanted the player to have to strike first, and then if the player had hit, then the enemy will hit back. But if the player heals, then the enemy won't hit back, right? And I guess I could have made all of this kind of thing, right, into the fight section just to bam, have it hit. But I also liked the idea of having that choice option be a little different. So on a normal turn, if you're not fighting, then the enemy is standing before you. And when you do fight, then the choice prompt you get is that curiously, the enemy glares in your direction. Being all like, what's up? I want to hit you again. So anyway, then we set the last choice. Last choice was fight. We're going to set that to true. And it's Boolean value. Either you chose fight or you chose something else, which helps up there. And then we are going to print out a little attack message. So you attack, actually, not to. Just be you attack the enemy with a random choice. Because again, we learned that cool random choice up here for the random choice prime numbers, which I'm using random choice for variable name of enemy name. May as well use random choice when choosing how to attack. Now, all of the attacks obviously do player strength, but it adds a little bit of fun. And then, if the enemy is HP is less than 1, the enemy dies. You get to print that you have slain the enemy, and then we break. We break right here out of the loop because we don't want to continue to beat a dead enemy. If the choice is heal, then, and again, I'm using this to upper to test against the single letter H and also the full word. Now, if they do say like HE or HEA, then it won't work, right? It has to be either first digit or first letter or the whole word. We're going to set the last choice was fight to false so that the last choice was not fight. And we are going to change the player HP. We're going to add a random integer like we were told. And then I'm going to print out a little message to say that you've healed yourself with the new value of what the HP is. And then, of course, to stop my player from continuing to heal themselves to effectively godly levels of HP, I'm going to have if my player HP is greater than 99, so effectively 100 or more, then I'm going to print out that I've gained so much health that I'm going to go somewhere else, and then I'm going to break out of the loop. So I'm no longer in the game because I'm just too lively. And then, of course, the last choice is to run. And last choice, if they were to choose this, wouldn't be fight. So I'm going to print away that they run away like a coward and break, again, out of the loop. And then this last little bit right here would be if they leave that loop naturally, which is to say that their player HP is 0 or no longer greater than 0, right? So maybe it's a negative number. But we're going to check, because once we break out of all these things, we do actually run this code. And so we want to check to see if the player HP is less than 1. If it's less than 1, it's 0 or below, they're dead. So we're going to let them know that they died. And yeah, that's how I did it. Hope you had fun with this one. And I mean, you all submitted it, so probably did.